I'm Melanie Johnson along with my co-host Jenn Foster. We are both 13-time best-selling authors. We've published over 2,500 books and made all of our authors #1 bestsellers. We own Elite Online Publishing. If you want to become a best-selling author, look us up at eliteonlinepublishing.com. Now, welcome to the podcast that shares secrets from top industry experts that show you how to get lasting success and results. This is the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hey, this is Melanie Johnson along with Jenn Foster. I hope you're doing great today. How are you, Jenn?
Doing great. Thank you.
All right, well, we have another spectacular show for you today. First, I want to remind you to subscribe to our podcast, share it with somebody else that you love, because we always have fantastic information here that inspires you, motivates you, educates you, and helps to make your world a better place. So share it, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. So have you ever thought that you have dreams, but sometimes your dreams are just like buried deep inside you and they're just never coming out? Well, we are so honored today to have Mark and Crystal Hansen here. And if you're not familiar with Mark, he has written Chicken Soup for the Soul, been an author of all the Chicken Soup for the Souls. Okay, he just told me before this broadcast that, what was it, like 360 books that he's authored. Whoa. So we're going to learn about his new book, and Crystal has written his book with him, and it's called Ask: The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. So you're not going to want to miss this. Share it with somebody else that you know and love, or send it to them, because it's just going to be a super special broadcast. We're so honored to have both of you here. Mark and Crystal Hansen, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Melanie
We're so happy to be here.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about the book and how it came about.
What happens is that we traveled to 80 different countries, met all kinds of wonderful people that are talented, well-educated, personable. But the difference between those who succeed a little and those who succeed a lot is one thing and one only, and that is the ability to become what we now call a master of asking. And what happens is, so we said, look, how do you ask? And you ask yourself, you ask others, and you ask God.
Wow. I love that. And so how did you come up with putting all of that together? So when you're asking yourself, you're asking others, you're asking God, what are you asking them?
So, we found that each of those channels is equally important, ladies, because starting with asking yourself, because asking yourself is that reflective journey. There's just no way you can get anywhere without learning to do this, because within that asking yourself part, there are really three critical phases of that. And that is, asking yourself, where am I now? You have to understand what's going on. Am I liking? Is it working? All of these sub questions, whether you're talking about a relationship, a career, whatever you're trying to do, you need to start off with asking yourself those questions in that first critical phase. Where am I now? Second critical phase is, where do I want to be? And so many of us never stop to do that. We never stop to really define, where is it exactly that I want to be going? What's my ultimate destination? What is my greatest definition of success? And in that definition of success, what am I doing? Who am I talking to? What is my focus every day? And when you start to line up those questions like that, all of a sudden, bam, you get solutions, you get illuminations, you get understandings, you get a new direction, you start to form a new plan. It is like the secret sauce. It is like the magic key to opening every door. And then the third critical phase of that is, so it's, where am I now? Where do I want to be? Mm-hmm. And what are the specific actions to my getting there, right? Because we have to take our asking journey and put it into action. We can't just sit on the sofa and go, oh, I hope this all works out. As you get these breakthroughs, as you get illuminations, you need to act on them. Go call that person, go investigate that thing, get that course, talk to that person, take the action. And in that way, your journey, that's where you start to unleash your dreams and start to move towards your destiny.
I love that. And with that, you're asking God too, so you can have the right direction, because you can ask yourself and understand, but you also need that reassurance from above, right?
Exactly. What happens is that, like, even finding the title to a book, when Jack and I were trying to find Chicken Soup in our respective houses, we said 400 times, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title. And the minute you program, it's called a thought command, to your deeper, innermost, highermost subconscious, or your higher self, however you want to define it, it's got to come. So at 2:30 in the morning, Jack calls me from his home to mine and says, chicken soup, I said, for the soul. And we had it. The point is, we're in this first lockdown time in human history. 8 billion of us are locked down. Everybody's got to ask God. Our subtitle is ask the bridge from your dreams to your destiny. And we say everyone's got a destiny. The job is to find it. And a lot of people got to pivot. They got to reinvent. They got to reorient, rediscover themselves. And we're saying, God, what's your destiny for me? What is it that you want me to do to fulfill my purpose? Assuming you've got a spiritual set, and we think everybody's intrinsically spiritual.
Right. And can I just say one thing about the asking God part is that's the way you stay connected to the divine. That's the way you stay connected to that purpose for which the Creator made you. You know, if you don't keep that constant dialogue open with God and say, you know, keep asking, what was I made for? What is the best use of my time? What is the best expression of me? And how can I serve best? And, you know, it also puts our lives in context, because if we're just so self-focused on us, you know, it's kind of like pulling the camera lens back. It gives you a broader context that makes everything you do in your life so much more meaningful.
Yeah. And so you start to ask the questions, which I love that. And you're having the conversation with God. And so many times you don't have the conversation with yourself. You don't have the conversation with God. And then there's the conversation with others. So 2 parts of this question is, how often should you be reevaluating, where am I now and where do I want to go? Is this a daily practice? Is this a monthly practice, once every quarter, once a year? You know, because some people, it's like setting the New Year's resolutions and then you don't look at it ever again. So that's part of it. And then my other part of the question is the others, asking the others. So how do you decide who those others are? Because like you say, you got to be careful who you surround yourself with. And sometimes not everybody has your best interest at heart. So knowing that. So the other people, how often should we be doing this process? And how do you decide who those others are?
So 2 questions you got. But the first one is, we pray and meditate together every day, beginning our day for 1 hour. And we go through all of this exactly like we've said, out loud with each other and figure it out. Second part, ask others. When I was bankrupt and upside down and wanted to kill myself back in 1974, so we're talking about 50 years ago, is that I woke up and I said, well, I want to talk to people that care about things that matter, that would make a life-changing difference. Went to my roommates in Hicksville, Long Island, New York, and I asked, I said, any of you guys know somebody that's young, not a celebrity, not a doctor, not a lawyer, not a famous person? They said, yeah, there's a guy a few years older than you talking to all the realtors. He's a wow. I race out there to Hauppauge, Long Island, New York. This guy, Chip Collins, wows people for 3 hours. I asked him, I said, can I take you to lunch? He said, I'd love a free lunch, kid, but you're not going to make it. 1 in 1,000, you'll make it in business. He taught me what to do, and I did 1,000 talks a year for the first 3 years. And then people said, do you have it as a book? And it wasn't our ask book, but the first book I wrote was Stand Up, Speak Out, and Win, because people said, I got to have that story. And I didn't say this is an international bestseller, a New York Times bestseller, a Wall Street Journal bestseller, an Amazon that didn't exist yet. I said, this is my bestseller. Everybody wanted it signed. I tripled my income and in 1 year by having a little book, and sold at $10 each. The book cost retail to them, the audience. That's the only place I was selling it. I sold 20,000 copies, so I made 200,000. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Back then, that's like $2 million. So I was smoking.
Well, I love that you tripled your income by a book. Obviously, we own a publishing company. We preach that, how you can use a book and leverage a book, that you tripled your income by telling your story.
Right. And I think the ask yourself part that you were just asking about, Melanie, is it's important, you know, you start to discern who you need to ask by asking yourself first, you know, what is I want? Who's the right person? And then you just start to reach out to people. And you will get some rejection, but for the most part, the studies we did for the book show that if you're just willing to ask someone for something, either help or advice or you know, wisdom, they're 80% more likely to help you than if you just sit back and don't ask. So those odds are really good, but we all get really scared. You know, people hold back because we have what we call in the book the 7 roadblocks to asking. And we found, Mark and I discovered in writing this book, that all of us have at least one of those roadblocks, if not all of them. And it's seriously, and it's so important to recognize them, because once you recognize them, you can start to overcome them.
What
And
are
we
some
can
of
go through
those
the
roadblocks?
roadblocks if we have time. You want me to go through the roadblocks?
Yeah,
Really?
let's give us some of the roadblocks. And I'm sure all of us are going to go, oh, that one's me. Yeah, maybe that one too is me. Yeah.
So unworthiness, which is just this subtle conditioning that, childhood conditioning, we just don't deserve better than what we have.
Yeah.
We're not worthy of having the success we're seeking or what we're asking for. So we really need to look at that. Naivete is a big one. And believe it or not, I tell the story in the book that the naivete is about that childlike curiosity that we all had when we were born, right? We were born in this world going, what, who, what, when, where, why. We want to know everything about everything. And we also want to ask for more, which is natural. It's our human spirit being alive, but then that gets shut down by whatever, parents, families, teachers, bosses, rejection over life. So the asking, the desire and the curiosity to ask gets crushed out of us. So that naivety part is, I tell the story of this woman who worked for us when my children were young. She's from the Philippines. She used to come and make these beautiful dishes, these dinners for us. And one day she shows up with this fruit and she puts it on a plate, cuts it up, and it's this juicy orange fruit. And I tasted it. I said, Melda, what is this? It's fantastic. She goes, it's a mango. And I was like, a mango? How come I've never had a mango? And I was like, I've traveled a lot all over the world. How come I've never experienced a mango? And I go, where'd you get them? Thinking she imported them from the Philippines. And she goes, at the grocery store. And I was like, seriously, I've been passing these by every day at the grocery store. Well, not every day, but whenever I go to the grocery store, what other things am I missing in life? Just because I'm naive to the fact that they exist. What experiences am I passing by every day? What opportunities am I just walking past because I don't even understand they're there, right? And I'm not curious enough to keep asking and asking and asking. And, what people am I missing? What future partners, potential collaborations? So it's so important. That naivete one is a big one that we all probably need to overcome in some ways. The next one is doubt, just doubting that there's going to be a good outcome. It's kind of like what we call the gray zone. Just, I doubt that's going to work out, so I'm just not going to do it. Excuses is more about that stubborn pride. We all know those people who go, I'm not going to ask. I don't need any help. I'm not going to ask for anything, right? And so they'll just stay stuck in their situation, never ask anybody, stay the same forever. And that's unfortunate because all we have to do is break down that stubborn pride and start asking. Next one is fear. And that is just the sheer terror of rejection, right? Like people, somehow human beings, I think it's because we all need love. And we feel like if we're rejected, somehow we're losing love or approval. But, we have so many stories in this book that help you understand that if sometimes you just have to step on your fear with courage, even though you're feeling it. And the outcomes can be so magnificent. We have just these breakthrough stories where people did that and they were terrified. But guess what? It changed everything. So, and then the final two, pattern paralysis, where you keep doing the same thing over and over again and it's not working, but you keep doing it and you keep repeating it and you never stop to ask, is this working? How could I do it better? Is there something not working about this? A lot of people get stuck in the pattern paralysis. And the final one is disconnection. And I think that's the saddest one for me because that really means you've just gotten to this state of sort of apathy and hopelessness where you've disconnected from the dreams in your heart. Right. And that's a tragedy because all of us were meant to get out there every day and express and be the best version of ourselves. And so we really need to recognize what is our specific roadblock or which of these, it might be all of them, is so that we can start to, because that awareness is like the gate that opens. Then we can finally walk through and start to do something different.
Yeah. And I think just being aware of those and looking at each one and focusing on each one and having that open-mindedness to change and to grow.
Yeah, that's right, Jen. That's exactly it. And then when you read, there's so many beautiful stories in there because Mark and I love stories because stories are like metaphors for our own lives, right? And our brains think in patterns, and a metaphor is a pattern that we can learn very quickly from. So we receive great benefits by reading these stories of people who've been where we've been or had a similar situation. Suddenly we see, oh, that's the way I do it. That's the way to break through.
And that's why your book and your books are so brilliant, is because you connect with people through stories. And that's when people feel like they're close to you or they get it. It's like the light bulbs go off. I always tell people when they're trying to write a book, I said, you need to have that story in there. I said, think about a minister. Almost anyone's been to church at some point in their life, and a minister has the scripture, and then they give you either their personal story or somebody else's personal story or stories from the Bible that illustrate that. And that's when you go, oh, I get it now. Aha, the light bulb goes on. And I love what you were saying about the asking and the fear. I was going, yeah, the fear is my big one. And I try and teach my kids, it's like, well, if you don't ask, the answer is already no. So it's a definite no if you don't ask. But if you ask, you could get the yes. So you're going in thinking, well, the worst thing is it's like, if I don't ask, I'm going to get the same answer, right? So you have that opportunity. And that's happened to me so many different times in life where I had to pull up my bootstraps or my big girl panties, so to speak, and just do it. And then I had great results afterwards from doing that. And I love how you say it's not a complicated process. So once you get over and identify these things, what do you think the next step is going through the book, like trying to get into that routine of doing the process that you talk about?
Well, it goes back to the first part you said about the story. And we not only did we do all the writing, that everything we knew about Aston, we did the full research at Harvard and Stanford and all that, and it corroborated what we thought. And then we interviewed 26 what we call master askers. As a matter of fact, we're inviting all of your people to come for free to askthebookclub.com. We're going to have the biggest virtual book club because we want people to master the discovery of their own destinies. But we had a guy that found his destiny out of a problem, which a lot of people are existing in right now, and that is Jim Stovall. He was going to be an NFL player. He's big, strong, got recruited, and the doctor said, kid, you're going to be blind in 6 months. He's now self-incarcerated in a 9x12 room with a telephone and television and no real way to get out. And his parents say, look, Jimmy, just go down to the blind meeting. He sits next to this woman who's also blind, a court stenographer, and they get to talking, and because there's an echo chamber of negativity, which we're saying today, given the problem of COVID, you got to shut off the negativity after 15 minutes. But he says, I used to love to watch TV and see somebody throw a right hook. Somebody ought to narrate it. She said, Jim, you and I are somebody. Why don't we do something? And that's what everybody out there has got to do. Because I say an entrepreneur is a problem solver for a profit. They created narrative TV, which now has 14 million people paying $10 a month to hear what's happening on TV. Because you're blind or nearsighted or something, you should be able to see that. But then he wrote a book called The Ultimate Gift, which I wrote the foreword to, and said there's got to be a movie. And so we interviewed him for the book, and he says, I now write books that I can't see, and I write movies that made $100 million that I can't watch. And so what I'm trying to do is get everybody out of their pity party with a story of a guy that had it worse than you, because everyone goes, you don't know, I broke my fingernail today, or I can't go get my nails done or my hair done, and you don't know if this is tragic. I don't know if I can live.
Right.
And they get stuck, right? People get stuck, and they kept telling, like the hamster wheel, like you say, and they can't get out of the unstuck.
Right, that's it. And questions, there is no mechanism that has the ability to reveal what's hidden like asking. And so just like that story exemplifies, when you start asking a question, all of a sudden, bam, you get a breakthrough. You get something comes to you that wasn't there before. In fact, the research we did shows that when you ask yourself a question, a different part of your brain goes to work for you. And it's the part of your brain that does critical thinking. So all of a sudden you have this new resource, okay? All of a sudden these ideas come, a new thought comes, and that's when you need to act on it. And that's what Jim and Kathy did. They, it's like the question came, well, this should happen. Well, someone should fix this. Well, why don't we fix it? And it's like, oh yeah, why don't we? Okay, how are we going to do
that? Why not me, right? Why not you?
Yep. And then how do we do that? The next question that comes from that. So it's those action steps that you start to take as you get those illuminations, ideas, you start to go, okay, what's the next step? What's the next step? And we talk in the book, there's a section on how to prepare to be a good asker, and that is number one, you have to have belief. So you have to believe that your answer is out there for you somewhere waiting, and then believe that you deserve it. And the second part is action. Just like we just said, you have to be prepared to take action as you start to ask those questions and get those breakthroughs, illuminations. Take the action right then, like they did, because every day you keep asking the questions, take some more action steps. And the third one is imagination. You know, our imagination is one of the most amazing gifts God gave us. You know, we're the only animal that has the ability to do that. You know, that's because God created us in his image, or we're created in the image of the creator, right? So we have this ability to imagine something. We can imagine anything we want. And your imagination becomes like a blueprint that you're creating for your future. So if we're sitting there, you know, taking in the negative news and everything's bad, it's exactly the opposite of what you want to be doing. You need to shut that off. And to prepare to be a good asker, you need to start using your imagination. Go to that place where you ask those questions, start taking the, you know, actions, but imagine what it is as you start to get the vision. Start to imagine the perfect scenario. Ask yourself, if I had perfect success in this area that I want, what would that look like in a perfect situation? Yeah. Imagine I'm already successful in that way. What am I doing every day? Who am I talking to every day? What am I focusing on? What's meaningful to me? What really lights me up? And you'll start to literally create the blueprint for exactly what you want.
All right, all my publisher light bulbs are going off big time when you were saying all this, that there needs to be a supplement that goes with your book that is like a daily planner.
Yep. Yeah, we're working on it.
Or not, but I'm like, you know, that you had the check marks there, that I did this today, I wrote in and asked the questions, you know, but you were saying about success. That's just perfect. And an app to go with that. Okay. So you need both of those things. Just saying.
I love this. This is like affirmation for us, because that's what we kind of already have that in the works. So Melanie,
it's going to be a great course. I mean, we can't use the title yet because it's under construction. The publisher is saying, "Are you sure you're going to stick with that title?" And we think it's 100%, but you know, it's the most wonderful time. And what I'm saying is, I wrote a whole book called "You Have a Book in You," and I think everybody at home and in lockdown has to write a book. And I think you guys would agree, because you really got to do what Socrates said. You know, the unexamined life isn't worth living, and you got to examine yourself and say, well, what is it? Back to her question, that first one, how well do you know yourself and what you want, so what you're going to do and what the outcome can be?
And sometimes it's uncomfortable, right? Those questions, when we do a thing called a VIP day for our authors to get them to hone down what their message is and what they want to write their book about. And a lot of the questions make them squirm. And during the day, they may cry and they may get mad and they have all these emotions, and they get done. I feel like I had a whole years worth of therapy with you today, but because it's difficult questions, and you're asking those hard questions in those books, and sometimes it makes you squirm. But when they push through that, the results is phenomenal.
Right, the power of that, you know, the power of questions, the power of asking. There's really nothing like it to reveal the direction of your life for you.
How do you get people to be vulnerable enough to really honestly dig deep to answer those questions?
You know, I think people, once they start to do it, they realize how powerful it is, you know, and I think for a lot of people, that's why they need a book like this. They need the prompting, they need the suggestions, they need sort of that template to follow it and start to, you know, take that track. Yeah. So it's a great resource to everybody.
And by the way, this thing about other is that obviously you're the other for a lot of these people that want to be authors, and they got to start by saying I'm an author before they become one, because you got to be it to do it to have it. We know that. But the fact is, every one of us needs an interface. So we're on one podcast twice with the guy down in Texas, Scott Carson, you may know him, and he said, look, everybody, you know somebody that's depressed, despondent, disconsolate, or probably suicidal, being locked down for 6 months. I want you to buy 10 of Mark and Crystal's book, Ask the Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. I want you to have them read it, and then I want you to have them interface with them and ask, are you vulnerable enough to grow yourself out of this? Right. Because whatever number I give you is arbitrary, but 30 to 50% of people are not going to have the job to go back to that they were doing before. Right. Whatever it is. I mean, like our kids and grandkids just got back from flying, and the airport's got only 20% of the stores open anymore. In Orlando and Cleveland, coming back to Arizona. They just were here a few minutes ago after a first podcast. And they said they couldn't believe it. There's no restaurants open, and they're not thinking they're going to open them. And the only thing you can buy there is a bottle of water. And I go, holy cow, there's a lot of people that are unemployed. I was on the board of the world's biggest airline, Evergreen Airline, privately held. And so I am really sensitive to pilots not having a place to go to other pilots. So that's why I'm saying you've got to ask yourself, how do I reinvent myself? How do I reorient myself? How do I re-engineer myself? And then our book teaches how to reverse engineer yourself so you get to exactly where you want to go, because most people have never done what you're saying, that VIP. Ask the hard questions of, how do you want to sculpt yourself? Like when we were in Florence, the question at Michelangelo, they said, well, how you make it David? He said, I chip you out everything that's not David. You and I got to chip out all the imperfections to say, how do we fulfill our destiny?
Right.
Yeah. Which is not an easy question for many times. I mean,
no, it's not, particularly now, but I think now during these times, we need it more than ever because there's so much uncertainty and we don't have the answers, but we always have questions, and the questions are powerful and they'll take us to the next place. And it's interesting because we were talking to our friend who is a psychiatrist, and he was saying how psychiatry and psychology, they are backed up. They have waiting lists that they've never had before because people are so distressed by what's happened because the world is so uncertain. So this book is a great resource if you know somebody who is, feeling a little hopeless and uncertain. We all need all the tools we can get right now. And if we're able to take this process and take this journey, this asking journey, you come out realizing that everything can be changed, everything can be reinvented, this too shall pass, and we will move life forward. We just need to keep asking the right questions so that we move in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah, and where can people go to find the book?
Go to Amazon.com and get the book there. And like Mark said, after you get the book, you can just go to askthebookclub.com and we'll invite you to this book club discussion, which we think will be really fun. It's going to be free, no charge. And also, look us up. I'm at Crystal Vision Life. I have a free resource there. I have a guided visualization audio because I'm a transformational life coach, clinical hypnotherapist. I have an audio called Purge Messy Thinking, which is really helping people right now. And he's got some free resources on his site, markvictorhansen.com. And then you can find us on social media, Crystal Dwyer Hansen, Mark Victor Hansen, of course. And we love, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of the above, YouTube. But we love to connect with people. So yeah, please stay in touch and get the book and let's have some conversations about your asking journey.
Yeah, and I love that you can gift the book. So I love your story, Mark, about buying 10 books and give them to the people that would help them. And I see that it has the ebook and the audiobook and the hardback. So however people like to read books or listen to books and consume that information, that will help them and their friends.
Jen, you got it right, because what Chicken Soup did is the biggest gift book ever, and our publishers didn't even believe it at the beginning. And what happened is the pass along value is like 5, and if somebody lent the book, like if I lent the book to you, I'd never see it again, so they had to go rebuy it. And when we go to China or India, the pass along value is like 15. It just is astounding what has happened around the world with our books, and we're thankful that we're good storytellers. And what we're bottom line saying with Ask is that people have got to rewrite the story of their future, because this isn't a dress rehearsal, and we're not going to stay locked down, like Crystal said, forever. We're about to open up, and the real thing you got to open up is your mind, your heart, your soul, your beingness, and see that disadvantage, you take crisis and turn into opportunity, just like the yin and the yang.
Well, definitely go and reach out and get their book, Ask: The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. We want to thank everyone for listening today. Remember to subscribe to our podcast and get the book. And we'll see you soon next time. Remember to subscribe and leave us a comment. We'll see you.
Bye. Thanks for being
Thanks
on.
for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.